Hi there. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet podcast for women who wonder. Frankly, as we go through life, I'm sure we wonder about a great deal. First as little kids, then as adolescents, then as young women, then as transitional women. What are we calling ourselves these days? And then you get to this point in life, or my point in life, when you're postmenopausal and wondering what's next. Wondering if the parade already passed you by. Join me, Wonder Wendy. I'm going to be your host as we talk about some of these unique challenges that face women today in a new millennium, going through menopause and trying to live a rich, full life. There might even be a few men and younger women that want to listen in too. That's okay. But there's a roller coaster and we're all on it. And I'm going to be your guide to help you figure out when you should close your eyes, when you should hang on, and maybe we'll explore some ideas for what works for you if it doesn't work for me, or vice versa. So join the conversation, pick up your favorite beverage, and we'll talk to you soon. Welcome to the Imperfect Prophet.
The first time I realized that my engagement ring could double as a disco ball, I was behind the wheel of my car. Maybe I was the first person to invent the mobile disco. I doubt it, but all it took was a Jeep and a diamond ring. The sun hit my finger at just the right angle, and suddenly the whole interior lit up like Studio 54, sparkles bouncing off every surface. My future husband looked over and groaned, "Eyes on the road, please. Don't be a menace." And for quite some time, he was very worried that this was a danger to me and the rest of the world. I've adapted. But he wasn't wrong. I was mesmerized by the light. It was very distracting. Now, you sharp YouTube watchers might know that I sometimes take off my ring because I talk with my hands and the sparkle can steal the show. Those of you who watch the videos know that I am prone to talking with my hands. Now, that same little stone has done other magic tricks too. Sitting in church, the stained glass will catch it, and suddenly I have a kaleidoscope in my ring. The beauty of that reflection is really something to behold, as within that tiny space, there is infinite possibility and color. Now, if I see a child within a row of me on the airplane, because you get that really clear light coming through the airplane window, I put my ring out, catch that brilliant light, and it lights up onto the ceiling. I'll count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, and wait for the little gasp when that child notices the twinkle. That tiny piece of carbon was never just one thing. Disco ball, kaleidoscope, magic trick. One of the reasons I said yes. And maybe that's the point. Maybe diamonds and people aren't meant to be just one definition. Diamonds and people have many facets. We can be messy, glorious, tired, dazzling, and sometimes all before noon. Welcome to another episode of The Imperfect Prophet, a podcast for women who wonder. With me, your host, Wonder Wendy. Now, once again, I'm in a place where I can't control all of the environment. I am poolside in Palm Springs, believe it or not. By the time you see this, I'll be back home again. But we're here to see Paul McCartney in concert. He's kicking off his American tour. And that's one of those things we couldn't miss. But now, back to our episode. Superman first crushed coal into a diamond in Action Comics 115. The story is called The Wish That Came True. In 1947 is when that happened, just a couple years ago. Now, in Superman 3, he did it again. You remember the movie. He can just compress a charcoal briquette in the back patio and make Lois a diamond. Does that make it less special? Ooh, would you take a diamond for granted if they became common? Now, the science behind that transition is fairly straightforward. Diamonds are carbon. Charcoal briquettes that you use on your patio or tailgating, also carbon. But same basic element, different story. A diamond is just carbon, but isn't most of the life on our planet. Now let's take this one step further as we discuss the words we use to define our universe and the things around us. A diamond is a rock, but not all rocks are diamonds. A common charcoal briquette that you use to start your hibachi is a block of carbon, but not valued as highly as the diamond in the Diamond District of New York City. If you've been there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Rows and rows of windows sparkling in the light. Now, at a Texas barbecue, that's another story. They value a good charcoal briquette. Now, diamonds aren't always shiny. When they are first mined, they don't look like what we call a diamond. Then there are lab-grown diamonds, and that is a whole nother debate. Are they really diamonds that are just less expensive to produce? Sometimes our most authentic selves aren't the ones mined from tradition, but the ones we created on purpose. If you had to learn to do something, if you had to perfect your skills, does that make it less valuable than the person who had that skill innately? Or maybe because you learned it, you value it more. I know, a lot of questions to ponder this week. Now you know why I thought it was a good episode. Now, like that lab-created diamond, we are a product of our environment, even if we didn't start out as a shiny stone. And as I said, even a mined diamond doesn't really look like a shiny stone until it's properly cut. Now, the difference comes from conditions, pressure, heat, transformation, time, and, perception. Isn't that the truth with people too? Some raw material, but if someone meets you on your bad day or your brilliant day, their perception comes the story they tell about you. And sometimes we start to believe what they see in us. I'm thinking of Lou Ferrigno, the star of the Hulk TV series. You may remember him. Big guy, bodybuilder. Now, some people have been known to say he's not very friendly. And I've met him, and he's a very sweet man. I suspect what happened is because he's hard of hearing, and that is something I'm very sympathetic to. He gets overwhelmed in loud environments, like conventions where he meets lots of people. And it makes it very difficult for him to communicate. He gets overwhelmed in loud environments. And it's frustrating because people do not always speak clearly. Enunciation is lovely, people. Please do it. And especially with masks in this modern world, you can't even see their lips. He reads lips. So if you're not making eye contact, letting him read your lips and speaking clearly, and he's tired. These cons are exhausting. Maybe he does come across as unfriendly because he's frustrated. Have you ever not been at your best? I'm deaf in one ear, so I really do understand this. Hearing where sound is coming from, or if people don't look at me, it's very difficult to communicate. I wonder how many people think I'm distant just because maybe I didn't hear them or understand them. I know there are many times, Skip especially has to tap me and say, somebody over there just complimented your boots, smile and wave. It's not that I'm unfriendly, it's just that I get overwhelmed. I can't hear it. And he's had years of training. Back to carbon blocks. Diamonds and charcoal. Sometimes what people perceive as hardness or roughness is really just the conditions we're under. One sits on a jeweler's velvet pad commanding thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions. What did they say? They speculate that Taylor Swift's new ring is valued at $750,000. Wonder how many minutes it took her to earn that amount of money. Wonder how many passes Kelsey had to throw to earn that money. Anyway, that other block of carbon, the charcoal briquette, sits in a bag in your garage waiting for you to burn it up and cook your portobello mushroom or your steak or your shrimps on the Barbie. They're both useful, they're both valuable, but in very different contexts. Think about it. If the snow is piling up outside your window, you would be far more grateful for the charcoal than the diamond. If you need to cook a meal or boil water to save your life, that charcoal is far more important. If you're freezing and hungry, you'll want charcoal, not a gemstone. That's all I'm trying to say. So why do we cling so tightly to one definition of ourselves? Why do we just say, I'm just this, or I'll never be that? Now, I won't attempt to describe you because every person, every listener is different. And even my closest friend probably have facets that I haven't seen. If you ask 10 people to describe me, you'd probably get at least 10 different answers. Some would call me a fashionista. Others, who know me well, a slob. Some might whisper, bitch. Someone else might say, philanthropist. I've been called a Christian and a witch, sometimes in the same week. Let's be honest, same day, same hour? When someone called me a fashionista, it's probably because they liked the look. Nothing to do with the labels or the price tag. When someone muttered, bitch, I was probably standing up for myself or challenging something they were stuck on. And yes, I've been called a witch, but only by people who don't appreciate my magic. Don't let other people define your magic. Honestly, they're all correct in their own way. I am all and none. Just like a diamond isn't just a rock. Just like a charcoal briquette would only be acceptable engagement gift for someone who really likes barbecue and isn't into jewelry. Like a diamond, who I am depends on the angle of the light and the needs of the situation. So what labels do people put on you? I hope you have your beverage. What words came to mind when I asked you, what labels do people put on you? And which ones have you started believing without even realizing it? Even compliments can be limiting. Think of all the pretty people who have been led to believe that means that they aren't smart. Or the people who take offense at being called nice, believing that is a slur. You know the old line when someone is trying to fix you up on a blind date and they describe the prospective date as nice? Warning bells go off. I want to be a nice person most of the time. Sometimes people don't deserve it. But nice is not always a compliment. So even positive descriptors can be debilitating if they are delivered or received wrong. And if you think about it, most labels say as much about the person speaking as they do about the person they are describing. Someone calls you bossy, maybe they're uncomfortable with leadership. Someone calls you nice, maybe they've forgotten how rare kindness actually is. Flashback a little bit. When I was younger, I felt like nobody really saw me for who I was. And a lot of the time, they were trying to mold me into something that I wasn't. That sting of being put into words that didn't quite fit was very real. When the movie Pretty in Pink came out, Molly Ringwald's character resonated with me. Not nerdy enough for the nerds, not brainy enough for the brainiacs, not popular enough for the popular kids. Feeling like a weirdo, even though Andy is a wonderful character. I wanted to be Andy in that pink dress. I wanted to be the feature in my own movie with all of its quirky reality of the family forgetting her birthday. I never had a store-bought prom dress. Well, I am now grateful for the skills I had to make my own dresses. I was almost a bit jealous of the girls who had store-bought dresses. Being crafty wasn't cool back then. Mercifully, I think there is a bit more respect for sewing and design skills now. Now it's a talent, not an indication that you are poor. Not that I was poor, but My parents didn't see the value in buying one in the store when I had the skills to make one myself. And as we discussed last week, having money doesn't guarantee happiness. I drifted between groups, fitting in everywhere and nowhere. The label I heard most often was weird or different. At the time, it stung. Now I realize it was the beginning of discovering that I didn't have to settle into one box, that maybe my weirdness was just another facet of the stone. That label, weird, that stung so badly. Turns out, weird is just another word for rare. Rare is just another word for valuable. Have you ever seen a raw, uncut diamond? Honestly, it looks like a piece of driveway gravel. If I'd stepped on it, I would have kicked it out of the way. Made me wonder, how many people have dismissed us at our uncut stage? How many times have we dismissed ourselves because we didn't yet look like the shiny version we imagined? The truth is, brilliance often hides in plain sight. It just takes time and care to be revealed. Fast forward to my first divorce. Now, this isn't another story of hardship. I'm so tired of transformation stories. This is just a story of me finding myself. Learning to be comfortable with that amalgam of being a rock that could be polished to shiny or rough hewn. A block of carbon that could light a fire or shine in the light. Who knows? Maybe I actually am a lab-grown diamond, a little shard of carbon changed. I don't even know how they make them. To becoming something just as good as a mined diamond, and strangely maybe less flawed than a mined diamond. Now, during that first marriage, I wore the label of Army wife, family support leader, amazing hostess on a shoestring budget. That was my role, my identity. And you know what? I was pretty good at it and shone like a well-cut diamond in that role. Oh, but then going through a divorce, that entire definition of my personality was seemingly erased. I was no longer an Army wife with all the duties that went along with that first title. The outside world didn't seem to care that I could make crepes from scratch or knew which fork goes on the outside of a place setting. As I sat in that dingy little law office talking to my divorce attorney, he looked up me in the eye and, without a touch of irony, said I'd be lucky to get a job as a shop girl. I was labeled as nothing more than a displaced housewife. And here's the thing, sometimes the labels we fear the most are the ones spoken in rooms with cheap carpet and bad lighting. Who's he to determine who I can be and what my talents are? Why do we give them so much power? Was that a negotiation technique on his part, or did he really think so little of me? I will never know. He encouraged me to go for as much alimony as I could get. I didn't go for alimony. I was terrified, but I felt I could figure something out after the divorce. I had to go back into the job market. I started hunting. I hadn't had a paid job in a few years due to so many moves and complicated pregnancies. I had to prove that I had skills. So I went to a temp agency and took some skills tests. I thought I typed maybe 36 words a minute because that was the speed on the Corona electric typewriter in high school. Did anyone else ever take a typing class in high school? I was college prep, and I had a history teacher who made us take a typing class if we wanted to type our papers. Now that we're in the computer age, I'm really grateful she did that to me. Anyway, I took that test, and at that point, I tested out at over 80 words a minute, thanks to all the time I've been spending on AOL. I know, that was the major thing we used back then. Remember those AOL discs that arrived? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm dating myself again. So anyway, at that point, now I type even faster because I write so much. That said, my prior work experience, college degree, and can-do attitude, well, all that added up to make me an asset. And I got lots of temp jobs. And I worked in several of them. And then I got into an administrative position, a permanent one. Did that for a while with the bank, and then worked my way into management in another line of work. What I'm trying to say is, just because someone tries to define your worth, it doesn't mean they see all your facets. So don't let that person with dingy carpet define who you are. Here's where it connects for those of us who are embracing being bucket listers. Midlife, or whatever we want to call this point, isn't about shrinking into a box or fading into the background. Midlife is the cutting and polishing stage. The pressure and the time you've already endured, it's coming up for results. It's what sharpens the edges and lets you shine brighter. All the skills you've picked up make you look like a diamond in the rough, a highly polished diamond, or that fabulous charcoal briquette that brings warmth and necessary fuel. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about revealing the brilliance or fire that was always in you. Because remember, that charcoal briquette, also useful. Now, when I was little, I used to play dress up. I had a chest full of old clothing, out-of-date evening gowns that I would kill to have today, dang it, and costume jewelry. Fake, plastic, missing rhinestones, and of no material value. But to me, it was treasure. I felt like a queen wearing them. Looking back, I realized even imitation sparkle can give us confidence until we grow into our own shine. And sometimes we need that practice of trying on sparkle before we recognize the real thing inside ourselves. So here's today's wonderful lesson. We are never just one descriptor, never just one label. And because you've been burned, and we probably all have, that doesn't mean you can't shine. So whatever carbon form you choose to take, that's great. You may shine, you may burn. Both have brilliance and power. How do you capture and redistribute the power of light in your life? Are you seeking out the light? Are you polishing the facets and fine-tuning to be cut and ready to sparkle? Maybe you're in the pressure stage right now, life's weight pressing down on you. Or maybe you're in the polishing stage, learning to shine brighter. Wherever you are, it's part of the process. I want to invite you to ask yourself, what label have you been carrying that's too limiting for who you are meant to be? What definition have you accepted as permanent that it's time to release? Because you, my friends, are not one thing. You are many things. Disco ball, kaleidoscopes, magic trick, a diamond with more sparkles than you've ever begun to reveal, or you are the warmth of a burning coal ember. They're all good. Live into your reality. Thanks for joining me for another episode of The Imperfect Prophet. If this story lit something inside you, share it with another bucket lister who needs the reminder. Oh, and always remember that the bucket list life is not about planning to die, as that is going to happen whether you plan for it or not. The bucket list life is about planning to live your fullest life. Keep dreaming, keep planning, keep shining. Together, we make the world a better place. Whether you're in the sunshine or not, we'll talk to you next week. And until then, stay hydrated and maybe caffeinated. Talk to you soon.
Like what you heard here today? Then we should be friends. I suggest you join my Facebook group. It's a good way to connect. We can have a conversation. Ask me questions, whatever you want to do. It is called the Wonderful Bucket List Life. That's Wonder-Full Bucket List Life. Be a bucket lister and join me on this adventure. Or you can go to my webpage, which is Wonder Wendy and Friends, join the mailing list, learn about the book I wrote, adventures that are coming up in the future, and other podcasts. I look forward to talking to you soon, and stay hydrated. Have a great day.